Joining us now is James Billot, Newsroom editor at UnHerd. James, great to see you. Thank you for joining us again. We're just 2 days away from Liberation Day in America, where a number of tariffs will be announced to fulfil the administration's ambitious economic agenda. We know that automakers are bracing for Trump's 25% tariffs on vehicles and parts made outside of the US. Now, Trump says that automakers are going to be making a lot of money, and this is what he had to say this morning.
Whatever they charge us, we charge them, but we're being nicer than they were. We have a lot of countries, friend and foe. I always say friend and foe, but the friend in many cases is worse than the foe. They took advantage of us, and we are going to be very nice by comparison to what they were. The numbers will be lower than what they've been charging us, and in some cases maybe substantially lower, but we sort of have a world obligation perhaps. But we're going to be very nice. Relatively speaking, we're going to be very kind.
James, what's the feeling over in the US about the tariffs?
Well, a lot of people just seem to be jumping to conclusions already. The tariffs haven't even come into effect, and yet people are already casting judgment on the president. I think we just need to wait and see what unfolds. I think, for starters, people tend to assume that tariffs are just some kind of economic tool that are used to just get some more leverage from the other country. But actually, it's also a way of enacting other types of policies. So, for instance, if you look at Mexico, if you look at Canada, less so Canada, but more so Mexico, there is a real problem with things like fentanyl trafficking and China dumping.
Yes.
And this kind of policy is exactly how you seek to unwind that. So I think there's a lot of attention being given to what Trump's tariffs will do to automakers and all that kind of thing. But I think we just need to wait and see. I think the funny thing is that he used to get attacked in his first term for slavishly following the stock market and heralding any kind of gain in the stock market as his own. And this time he's ignoring it and he's getting criticized for the exact opposite. So it's hard to get a read on this.
Yeah, excellent point. Look, we've seen the wave of violent attacks against Tesla, and there have been even more protests over the weekend, not as violent, thank goodness. But these protests, they've been known as Tesla takedowns. They were planning a global day of protests targeting more than 500 Tesla locations around the world, many of them targeted in America. But is it just me, or are the protests getting even weirder? Take a look at this. Oh, James, what do you make of it?
I mean, it's actually just a bit pathetic. It's clearly people with a bit too much time on their hands and nothing better to do. I do think it's quite funny when you've got all these protesters holding up swastika signs, and on the other side is an electric vehicle brand. And it's a weird contrast when you have left-wing groups dancing to groovy music, protesting the rise of Nazism in America, and then making a kind of jingle out of it. It's a weird place that we're in. But I also found that the sparse numbers that we saw in each of these locations probably goes to show that a lot of the public aren't really with them on this. And I just want to emphasize the fact that why they think this is the right idea, burning cars, terrorizing factories as a way to protest someone's political opinion, it's just plain wrong. And it's exactly the wrong approach. And the final thing I'd say about it is that the left were very quick to condemn Trump over January 6th and the behavior of some of the protesters that day. And yet they seem to tacitly or otherwise endorse exactly what's going on here. So there's a bit of hypocrisy going on that I can't help but note.
Absolutely. Hypocrisy from the left. We're seeing it once again. Now, the president of El Salvador has provided an update on deportations. He wrote, last night in a joint military operation with our allies from the US, we transferred 17 extremely dangerous criminals linked to that criminal gang. All individuals are confirmed murderers and high-profile offenders, including 6 child rapists. This operation is another step in the fight against terrorism and organised crime. James, what's your take on this development?
Well, Trump deserves a huge amount of credit for doing exactly this. And I also want to point out that last week, one of the MS-13 leaders on the East Coast was captured and deported as well. And this is primarily because Trump is no longer treating these people as gangs. He's actually designated them as foreign terrorist organizations, which gives him a whole new toolkit to establishing who's done wrong, who's here illegally, who's committing crimes, and getting rid of them. And it's remarkable to see just the complete lack of coverage that we're seeing on the left-wing media about these deportations. I mean, it's truly remarkable. I mean, these are huge successes of the Trump administration. And, you know, you have to give them credit where it's due. And this is clearly one of those cases.
Absolutely. Look, let's talk about USAID. The State Department formally notified Congress that it is effectively dissolving the USAID and moving some of its functions under the department. So the State Department said the reorganisation will be done by July, sounding a kind of death knell for USAID. Now, I'm seeing a lot of left-wing media outlets and people on the left freaking out about this. But many programs, while many of them are being eliminated, some of the DEI ones from overseas that we all were told about, but there are some that are allowed to continue that do involve humanitarian assistance and limited national security programs. Is that right? Should we be concerned that this is the death knell for USAID?
No, I don't think it's the death knell for USAID. I think it's the death knell for giving $1.5 million to Serbia to promote DEI initiatives. I think these kind of things are exactly what we want to be trying to remove. And let's not forget that America every year sends about $40 billion in aid to foreign and overseas countries. Now that, whether you like it or not and agree with the agenda, it's not in line with Trump's principles, the American first agenda. So it's no surprise that he's looking to tie this down and bring it out a little bit, because there has been a complete distortion in what the administration's priorities were in previous years. So I think we should welcome these developments. And look, once again, take a deep breath, Democrats. Let's see where this goes, and then pick your battle.
Excellent advice. Let's see if they will listen. Now, Donald Trump knows how to stir up the left, and the left-wing media is in meltdown after Trump declared that he won't rule out seeking a third term in the White House. He told NBC News that there are methods for doing so. Here's what he had to say about this on Air Force One.
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is in a way a fourth term, because the other election, the 2020 election, was totally rigged. So it's actually sort of a fourth term in a certain way. I just don't want the credit for the second, because Biden was so bad. He did such a bad job.
James, are we taking Donald Trump seriously here, or is he just having a bit of fun?
I mean, look at his face. I know he says he's not joking, but you can see Howard Lutnick in the back as well. They're clearly having a laugh, and they know that the po-faced liberal media like to take these comments incredibly seriously.
Yes.
And run with it, and run with it, and run with it. Now, obviously, a Trump third term would be quite a dangerous prospect for the Constitution, but I don't think Trump's particularly interested in that. He's focused on his second term and achieving what he was elected to do. The final thing I'd say is, yeah, he doesn't want to do a repeat of Joe Biden and become an 82-year-old running for the presidency again.
Yes.
So I suspect he will look back on these 4 years and think, well, I've done a good job here. I want to go off, play some golf, and enjoy my retirement.
We'll see what happens, but I want to talk to you about DEI. A prominent DEI non-for-profit declared bankruptcy after its board accused its founder and top employees of stealing millions of dollars. This is according to a Daily Wire investigation. The National Diversity Council filed for bankruptcy on March 17 after its board said that in a lawsuit that its founder, Dennis Kennedy, improperly paid himself millions of dollars from NDC's donor funds. The suit said that he paid himself a grossly excessive salary while using the non-for-profit as a front for his for-profit diversity consulting business called Diversity and Leadership. He was reportedly paid almost $500,000 for 10 hours of work per week, which is a pretty wild example of how DEI can be a scam.
Yeah, and I'm almost more surprised now when I hear about a DEI initiative that isn't built on grift and fraud. It's just astonishing. This goes all the way back to the BLM era, and you cannot forget that during that sort of 2020 to 2023 period, something like $90 million was donated to BLM causes, but only a third of that actually went to charitable initiatives, and something like 20 million was just lining the pockets of these BLM founders and BLM activists who are using that money for quote unquote expenses. It's just an extraordinary sum. And again, this story is case in point of that. And I think fundamentally what it comes down to is that it's because these groups are trying to make an issue out of something that doesn't exist. And that's exactly why they're now being found out for it.
Absolutely. Well said. James Billot, Newsroom editor at UnHerd, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.